this title might read as total cope, but if you'll indulge me for a little bit here, I think I have an idea of where the story between Gunther and Chad Gable is going. Now, if you want to sit back, relax, subscribe, and leave a like on the video, I'm going to go ahead and tell you exactly why I believe Chad is still going to be the guy to beat Gunther for the Intercontinental title. For all those unaware, Chad Gable and Gunther have been involved with one another since the fall of last year. Chad being one of the regular contenders for the IC title on weekly TV, seemingly put in that position to showcase his talent as well as continue giving Gunther impressive wins. However, compared to a lot of Gunther's other matches, this one was a little different. This one had a fire to it, and in that fire was years of poor booking, terrible names, and a talent that shined through all of that. We're of course focused on Chad Gable right now, or Shorty G as the old regime would know him by. I bring up that name for the explicit reason that I can guarantee most everyone who's watching this video hated that name, simply because it took what some of us believed was the second coming of Kurt Angle and made him nothing more than a punchline to a joke. And because of that disdain, eventually and inevitably he went back to the name Chad Gable, started the Alpha Academy, and has been able to showcase his incredible talent within the confines of that group. His comedy chops were and really are incredible. He rarely misses a mark in a segment. Even still though, people like myself really wanted to see a singles run for Gable, because we knew there was even more untapped potential in seeing this guy go after singles gold. So in September of 2023, we saw this Dave vs Goliath bout between him and Gunther, and the folks in attendance really rallied behind Gable in such a way that we hadn't seen before or really since. Mind you, I believe at least a small part of that came down to the excellent booking decision to have Chad even be the first guy to beat Gunther in singles competition, which even by countout made Gable look very capable as an opponent to the ring general. However, his opponent of course was the dominant Gunther, as I just mentioned, who in their second match was able to best Chad after Gable put on a stellar performance fighting against the impossible odds of the ring general. Some key notes here are Chad's really dejected look and feeling disappointed in himself immediately after the match, but more importantly the looks of his family, notably his daughter who could be seen crying in the crowd after her father lost. This little camera cut would unironically become a key point in their story today, as prior to this week's Raw, Chad would commonly utter the phrase, quote unquote, "it just means more," before releasing a video package on Twitter that would later air on Raw that focused on how much he had trained for and prepped for the second chance at Gunther, and that he would win the Gauntlet match for the simple reason of "it just means more." Then the Gauntlet match happened, where Sami Zayn, who was the odds-on favorite to win the match, came in third, where he eliminated Ricochet as well as Bronson Reed, who before leaving the ring decided to hit his finisher on Sami, leaving him open and vulnerable for Shinsuke Nakamura, who came out next, but Sami was able to pin him as well before Chad's music hit. Gable comes out, wrestles his heart out, and the pair put on a stellar final act to the Gauntlet match, where Chad basically has the ankle lock on Zayn for most of their part of the match. However, as the ultimate underdog does, Sami found a way to win by reversing the ankle lock, rolling up Gable, and the ref simply counted the 1, 2, 3. Now, we can take what this is telling us a few different ways as fans. Maybe Trips or someone in the back simply saw that Sami's momentum is more palpable at the moment, which would make sense given he's one of WWE's top babyfaces, and as such it made more sense to have him on the Mania card as opposed to Chad. And while I think there is likely some truth in that sentiment, I don't think that's all there is. You see, Triple H is very cerebral with his bookings, pun intended. And what I mean by that is that it just seems that everything has a reason to occur in the way that it does. Sometimes it's just a short-term plan to build somebody up a little bit, such as Jey Uso challenging Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight Championship, but in more recent times it seems like stories are planned out months in advance. As it pertains to Chad Gable in particular, after the fire he had from his initial rivalry with Gunther, I believe the plan all along was to revisit their rivalry at some point. As while Chad wasn't winning every singles match he was in or being featured all that prominently since September, he was always hovering around Adam Pearce's office looking for opportunity. And as such, as soon as the opportunity was on the cusp of arriving, Chad beat Ivar, who is unironically a lot better in the ring than I ever gave him credit for, as well as because of that victory, Gable was announced for the aforementioned Gauntlet match. Now, as far as the match itself is concerned, I do have a few minor criticisms here, which mainly pertain to the roles of Sami and Gable. Notably, I really think they should have swapped places in terms of order with the story I think they're telling for Chad. simply because having Chad go over Ricochet, Bronson, and Shinsuke would still make him look incredibly capable as a challenger in defeat. Sami could actually even help Chad up the same way that they did in real life before they started the match, and they would probably even go on to still win it in the same way it actually happened IRL. However, if you did it this way, I think it would have better accomplished both things that it seemed that they wanted to achieve with this match. The hug and the general show of respect after the match was appropriate and fitting for both the characters of Zayn as well as Gable, but I really think it would have benefited from having those roles reversed. That said, after the show went off the air, online there was a bit of discourse about the roll-up finish, as many people pointed out Gable's shoulders were off the mat at the time of the pin being called, which some folks believe is WWE's method to get this match on the Mania card as a triple threat instead. However, I don't really think that that's the plan, as there was another notable thing that happened shortly afterwards as well. WWE uploaded this online exclusive interview with Chad Gable in the locker room. He said things like how he felt like he was the better man that night and that he had Sami's number. But even though he feels like that, he's not going to go whining to management to get another opportunity for WrestleMania. Sami got the win and that was that. He then focused on why it meant more to him to get this match in the first place. He talked about his wife and kids and how he was almost always the foundation for his family, and that the foundation would go home that night feeling a little more wobbly than usual. He notably questioned things like his training regimen and if that was an issue, as well as a myriad of other things he might feel the need to reassess in the coming weeks. And that's pretty much the entire interview to this point. That said, I'm going to go ahead and hop into speculation territory here, specifically because of the mention of his training not being good enough. Now, bear with me, I'm not a booker and I'm never going to pretend to be, but this is kind of what I would do. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, Chad Gable is a literal Olympic wrestler who competed at the 2012 Olympic Summer Games. This of course parallels him really nicely with Kurt Angle, who I mentioned before, as well as his former tag team partner in American Alpha's Jason Jordan, who is currently a backstage producer for WWE and technically still Kurt Angle's son in kayfabe, I think? Anyways, we've all been asking for a more serious side of Chad, and while the Alpha Academy stuff has been great and all, I think he can shed that skin some and really come into his own as a more serious performer for the next couple of months. Not turning heel or anything, but instead receiving coaching and guidance from Kurt Angle. I'm talking weeks of video packages of the 2 or 3 of them training together, showing Gable how to go even further than he ever did before in the art of mastering grappling. Like, just imagine Kurt going through each week teaching Gable one of each of the 3 eyes and what they really mean. Personally, I really want to see Chad put his nose to the grindstone to get back to the Intercontinental Championship, because it will innately make his eventual win over Gunther not only feel earned, but truly deserved. And as far as that match goes, I really hope they do it at SummerSlam or something like that, because honestly, I can't wait too much longer to see my main man Chad realize the dream. But what do you think? Am I just following a breadcrumb trail that just simply isn't there? Do I sound like I have an unhealthy obsession with Chad Gable? Or do you think I'm on the right track? Let me know in the comments down below, and hey ho, while you're headed down that way, be sure to give the video a like and subscribe for more just like it in the future. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go book Chad and Gunther again in my GM for the 11th week in a row. As always, I hope you stay safe, and that was delightful.